Hi, welcome to Say a Prayer Ministries. I hope you've had an amazing week despite the pandemic. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I got a mic. I don't know if you can see it to amplify my voice. Someone reached out to me that I'm not loud enough. So I hope the mic actually does make a difference. If it does, leave it in the comment section below if you prefer me using the mic or if you prefer me just using my normal voice. As you all know, guys, we are trying to finish the Bible this year and we have successfully gone through Genesis to Esther and we're now in the book of Job. The book of Esther basically, as you remember, hopefully ended with Esther and Mordecai and the Israelites getting victory over Haman, and it just ended on a good note, and we were able to tie how the book of Esther relates to the difficult question people ask, where is God? So now we're just going to transition into the book of Job. Job had 42 chapters, guys, and there is a possibility that it was written by either Elihu or Moses or Job. Now, it is so important to say who it was written by because this goes to show the time that the book of Job took place. If there was a possibility that the book of Job was written by Moses, it means that the events that went down in the book of Job actually happened during Moses' time. If you followed the story up until this point, you will know that Moses has long died. So if there's a possibility that Moses wrote the book of Job, then that means that the events that went down in Job took place during the time that Moses was either alive or before even Moses came into the picture, but definitely not after Moses died. If you were to arrange it like orderly, then Job would probably be one of the first books of the Bible. Chapter 1 introduces us to this guy called Job, and he was introduced to us as this good guy who was genuine and loved God, very, very wealthy and famous in the land. So after we are introduced to Job, then we are now transcended from here into this discussion that God is having with the devil. And after this, the hedge on Job was lifted and Job just literally woke up the next morning to bad news from left, right, and center. His wealth was attacked, his children dead, he lost his house. Job's first response was to worship God, as we can see in chapter 1 verse 20. In chapter 2, now we see Job being afflicted in his body. His wife told him to curse God and he rebuked his wife. From chapter 4 to the end is a series of conversations between Job and his three friends, then one other friend that was eventually introduced to us towards the end, and then God at the final chapter. His friends basically took turns in talking to Job, trying to encourage him, and even Bildad was telling him to pray in chapter 8 verse 5. Job genuinely believed that he was being punished for nothing. He genuinely believed that he was righteous. At a point, Job basically said that if I were to take God to a court of justice, I will be found innocent. So what you will see throughout this conversation is Job's friends who were wrong telling Job that God was punishing Job for something that Job did. But whenever they would talk, Job would reply using a lot of self-righteous speech. God was not punishing Job because of what he did, because God was not even the one that inflicted Job. It was the devil. Job was not righteous as he was claiming to be. Because as we've seen through the Bible, and as we will still continue to see, especially in the New Testament, no man was righteous before Jesus came. We're covered by the righteousness of Christ. Job was so frustrated that at a point he made a statement, and that is in chapter 16, verse 1 to 5. I have heard many things like this. You are all miserable comforters. Is there no end to your empty words? What provokes you that you continue testifying? If you were in my place, I could also talk like you. I could string words together against you and shake my head at you Instead, I would encourage you in my mouth, and the consolation from my lips would bring relief. His frustration was as a result of his friend saying, why do you believe that you do not deserve this? Like, if God is punishing you, it's because of something you did. At a point, it was basically as though they began arguing. Like, it turned into a full-blown argument. His friends were angry. There was a statement Bill had made in particular in chapter 18, verse 1 to 4. And basically what he said was, how long will until you stop talking, show some sense, and then we can talk. Almost like they were vexing, like it was a lot. And it was like they came to comfort Job, but because of Job's level of self-righteousness, like they got so pissed, they went into like this back and forth thing, and Job would lament and complain and talk. I was like, Job, can you stop talking, please? Job basically viewed God as his enemy at this point and desired death, but he still believed that, yeah, when I die, I'm going to live forever. And then in chapter 32, we're introduced to Job's final friend, Elihu. Now, Elihu had been present through the whole back and forth conversations between Job and his friends, but had kept quiet because apparently Elihu was the youngest there, so he didn't want to sound disrespectful and he wanted to let the grown-ups talk. But now he wants to talk and he's angry because he believes that both Job and his friends were saying stupid things. And by divine inspiration, he basically rebuked Job and his friends, told Job that, I'm sure God was trying to warn you and you're so self-righteous, you need to stop justifying yourself. And basically telling the friends, stop condemning Job. Like, the fact that he's going through this does not mean that this is God punishing him for something that he did. Honestly speaking, Elihu's response was a lot more theologically accurate than his friends, than Job's other friends, and even Job himself. But you need to understand that at this point, there was no Bible. I mean, if this really happened before the time of Moses, the book of the law had not even come out. So their understanding of God was very limited. Elihu basically encourages Job to focus on God's greatness in chapter 37, verse 14 to 24. Now, I want to elaborate on this a little bit. It is so important to understand God, to know the nature of God. God is righteous, God is holy, God is love, God is good. The reason it is important to know God's nature is because it helps you understand the reason behind things happening. Now, God is righteous. Job had been in rebellion and self-righteousness for very long. And you could not continue in rebellion that long and not open yourself up to an attack from the enemy. However, you need to understand that there is a difference between Job's time and today. Now we wear the righteousness of God. When we fall, we communicate with God and we rise up again because of the sacrifice of Jesus. God and the devil are not having that sort of conversation anymore. The devil can no longer accuse you. When things happen to you, do not give an excuse like, oh yeah, it happened to Job, maybe God is punishing me for something I did. No, don't permit the devil to use your life to play games. When bad things happen, pray about it and resist the devil. You need to understand that throughout all these things that have been happening, Job did not once pray. Despite, even there was a time his friend, I already earlier said that his friend advised him to pray. Job did not once pray. And honestly speaking, it is so important to pray because that is the way to allow God to interfere with matters in your life. God finally answered Job in chapter 38 through a whirlwind. You come to understand from reading the book of Job that when God was telling the devil that Job was righteous, it was basically sarcasm and he was talking about Job's self-righteousness. And I am not surprised that God would use sarcasm while talking because, I mean, he was very poetic in his reply to Job. In chapter 38 verse 37, God says, "Who has the wisdom to number the clouds? Or who can till the water jars of heaven?" Basically meaning who can cause rain to fall. Seeing that, I mean, God used poetic language to communicate to Job, it's not surprising to me that he would use sarcasm to communicate with the devil. The book of Job ends in chapter 42 with Job acknowledging that he did wrong, God had told Job to pray for his friends. Job obeyed God and went to pray for his friends, and immediately he did it, like the trial, the temptation, everything came to an end. And he was restored back even double what he had. So now the question is, why do I have to suffer? Who caused coronavirus? Is God punishing us? The answer to that is no. Why you go through things is because we are human and we are living in a fallen world. If you've been following from Genesis, you know that Adam sinned, and because of what he did, sin came into the world. And that didn't just affect humans alone. That affected nature, the state of existence. God is not the reason you're being afflicted. The devil is, or decisions that have been made by other humans. Which is why it is so important to pray. God is not out there being like, coronavirus, strike them. When God looks at us, God sees us through the lenses of love, through the lenses of the sacrifice that Jesus made when he came. So God is not out there strategizing how to punish you. When you experience difficulty in your life and bad things are happening, pray about it. A friend of my friend, basically I overheard a conversation, and she was going through a tough time. She had a deadline that she was supposed to meet, and she was not able to meet it, and her first response to this was, oh, God is punishing me for something I did. And that is not true. God is not out there strategizing punishments for you if you do bad. You will go through things, but you don't have to permit those things and sit down and be lax about it or allow them. You can fight it through prayer, like Job eventually did at the end. I actually did this video twice, to be very honest with you, because first of all, this book is a very sensitive book. I mean, I have friends who have, I've had conversations with, and they would basically say, oh, I do not understand the book of Job, why God would cause what happened to Job to happen. And honestly speaking, I didn't fully understand the book of Job either until I read it and I began to see why everything that went down happened. So guys, I've taken off my mic and I really want to hear your opinion on which you prefer. Do you prefer when I was using the mic to talk, or do you prefer me not using the mic? Okay, I want to know which is better so that I can continue to give you guys quality. The reason I made the video on the book of Job twice was because after making the video the first time, I was exposed to more information that enlightened me, and I had to redo it to ensure that I give you guys the very best explanation of this book of the Bible. Do not let the coronavirus situation frustrate you or affect you. Take control of your life by praying about it. If this video blessed you, please share to your friends and loved ones. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below. It's red. Just click on it, click, and and that's it. So yeah, I love you guys, and Jesus loves you as well. See you same time next week. Have a lovely week.